This video is an overview of Lesson 3.1, which is all about measures of center. It is the first lesson in our chapter over describing and comparing data. This is the third chapter in the Essentials of Statistics text, 6th edition by Mario Triola. These slides are based on slides provided by Pearson, the publisher of our textbook, and then modified by me for our course. So here are our learning outcomes. In our first learning outcome, we're computing measures of center. We're going to focus on finding the mean, the median, the mode, and the mid-range for given data sets, and then we're going to familiarize ourselves with their properties. So these are all different measures of center, different ways that we can talk about that center value of the data set. And all of them have different pros and cons and slightly different meanings. So we want to understand those pros and cons and what each of those numbers mean and what they can tell us or how exactly they're measuring that center of the data set. Here is another way that we can measure the center. We can approximate the mean of a data set if we're given its frequency distribution. So if we don't actually have all the data, but we have a frequency distribution, which is a summary of the data, we can estimate the mean. It won't be exact, but we can find an approximation of the mean using a certain formula. We'll talk about that later in our second learning outcome. In our third learning outcome, we'll learn how to compute a weighted mean. Sometimes this is called a weighted average. We're not going to use the word average in this class very often, but if you've ever calculated your GPA, you are calculating a weighted mean. So we'll look at an example where we calculate a weighted mean for a student's GPA during a certain semester. And then lastly, we're going to focus on using critical thinking and measures of center to analyze data. So all of this is about finding different ways to measure that center of our data set. But of course, our goal is not just to develop mastery with computation. It's really about finding those numbers and then understanding what they mean and understanding what they tell us about the data. So I will see you in the next video when we discuss learning outcome number 1.